Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for September 15th, 2025. Today, we're going to start off at the Salt Lake Tribune, where it says, the Utah woman who brought mom talk and soft swinging into America's conversations will soon go from the secret lives of Mormon wives to choosing from a couple dozen men to date. Taylor Frankie Paul, whose candid admissions about her life as a Latter-day Saint mom on TikTok became a media sensation, has been selected as the next star of ABC's reality dating show, The Bachelorette. On The Bachelorette, one woman chooses over the course of several episodes from among a couple dozen male suitors. Taylor Frankie Paul also will continue to appear on The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. The reality show's third season is scheduled to begin streaming on Hulu on November 13th. Meanwhile, two of Paul's castmates, Jen Affleck and Whitney Levitt, are slated to compete on the upcoming season of Dancing with the Stars, which premieres Tuesday on ABC. I have to admit that Taylor is probably my favorite Secret Lives character. I will also admit that I have watched quite a few seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I'm not a diehard fan, but it's a fun watch. With Taylor starring, though, I will definitely be watching. And next, because I love a good visual, let's look at this map of Christianity in the US by county. Protestantism is shown in blue, Catholicism in red, and Mormonism in green. The green on the map covers all of Utah and small parts of surrounding states, and is absent everywhere else. I think the experience I'm about to describe is pretty common, but when I was leaving the church, I decided to figure out approximately what percentage of the current world population was Mormon. I think it would be fun to do it again now. Let's take the current world population, which is now estimated at 8.2 billion, then let's take the 17,509,781 members the Mormon Church claims and times it by the percentage of average attendance that returnandreport.org states, which is 21.8%, and we get 3,817,132 likely active Mormon members. Now I will divide that number by 8.2 billion, and the current percentage of Mormons in the world is 0.0466%. It seems that God is having a really difficult time getting his one true church to spread across the globe. Now let's read and discuss this post from an LDS Women's Facebook group that says, okay, I know this sounds petty, but it's how I feel. I have had 2 children serve missions. They both went stateside. They are very intelligent, no health issues, wanted to learn a language, etc. First one, I was like, okay, whatever. His mission was awful for him. Still has a lot of emotional trauma. The second his call came, I felt literally sick. I knew it was not a good call for him, and it most definitely was not. Second one, mission was good, no problems. Now I have a third getting ready to submit papers, and he really wants to learn a language. I feel like my family is cursed. My husband served a stateside mission. Grandparents served stateside. Husband's parents. All of husband's siblings served stateside English speaking. It really gets me when they ask where parents/grandparents served. What does that have to do with my child's mission call? I'm honestly tired of hearing call after call of foreign, or at least a language, and my kid opens up the stateside English speaking, and I know this one is going to be the same. I'm just asking for one. In one place we lived, of the 25 mission calls that were given prior to my son's, they were all foreign. Then came my son. I know it's petty, but I feel like, are my kids not good enough? What is going on? Then I think a lot comes from recommendations of bishop/stake president. So what are they saying about my kids? I know I should not feel like this, but I do. So does my husband. He just has a hard time admitting it and saying anything church-related bothers him. It really bothers my children as well when they see everyone around them get these exciting calls. I know it is not about the location, but when your family opens up continual disappointing calls, it starts to feel a little bad. Any thoughts or ideas? I have a few, and I would love to hear yours in the comments. While the church officially teaches that all mission calls are equal, the culture has created a distinct hierarchy. Foreign language speaking missions are viewed as more prestigious, more difficult, and a sign of greater spiritual fitness and intelligence. This perception is what makes a stateside English speaking mission feel like a lesser option. This hierarchy exists and leads to painful feelings that a family or a child is not good enough enough to receive a more spiritual or exciting call. Also, the mission call process is an emotional black box. Members are told that the call comes from God, but they are also aware that the input from a bishop and a stake president is a very human part of the process. This creates a painful gap. If the call is divine, why does it feel so wrong? And if human judgment is involved, what are my leaders saying about my kids? This lack of transparency leads to the kind of painful speculation this mother is experiencing, where she's left to wonder what her or her children have done wrong. I didn't serve a proselytizing mission, and I was actually relieved when I found someone who would marry me, so I didn't have to have the shame of being a 21-year-old unmarried Mormon girl back when the mission age for women was 21 and not the 19 it is today. I do remember, though, how different it felt when my oldest brother got a call stateside and subsequent brothers got called to places outside the U.S. The prestige of a non-U.S. mission call is real. Next, recently, Amy A. Wright, first counselor in the primary general presidency, shared the following on her Instagram page. After serving 9 months as the second counselor in the primary general presidency, my husband and I were invited to meet with President Russell M. Nelson in his office, where he extended the call for me to now serve as the first counselor in the primary general presidency. What I remember most about that experience, however, happened before the invitation was extended. While sitting directly across from our beloved prophet, the first thing he did was inquire about our 3 sons, and he called them by name. You can imagine what that did for my mother heart. Even today, tears stream down my face as I remember the simple yet profound way in which he ministered to our family. From a secular perspective, a person in a leadership role like Russell Nelson, especially one who frequently meets with people, remembering a few names is a sign of good social skills, preparation, or, more likely, a detail provided to him by an assistant. However, Amy describes this simple act as a profound way in which he ministered to our family. This is a key example of over-valuation. Amy's religious framework has taught her to see Russell not as a man, but as a divine representative. Therefore, any personal gesture from him is seen as a sign of God's direct personal love for her. A polite gesture was transformed into a spiritual revelation. Also, when she said, "You can imagine what that did for my mother heart," she signaled that the most meaningful validation she could receive was not for her own accomplishments or her call to a high-ranking position, but for her identity as a mother, which reinforces the church's narrative that a woman's primary, most important identity is motherhood. By having the prophet validate this role, Amy's devotion to it was sanctified, and she felt deeply seen and understood. I am trying to imagine an LDS man being called to a similarly high calling, meeting with President Nelson in a similar way, and saying what it did for his father heart. Amy goes on to say, reflecting on this sacred experience reminds me of his teachings, not Jesus's teachings, mind you, but Russell's. One of the easiest ways to identify a true follower of Jesus Christ is how compassionately that person treats other people. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers. I am asking us to interact with others in a higher, holier way. Charity is the antidote to contention. When we humble ourselves before God and pray with all the energy of our hearts, God will grant us charity. The temple can help us in our quest. There we are endowed with God's power, giving us the ability to overcome Satan, the instigator of all contention. As you demonstrate the charity that true followers of Jesus Christ manifest, the Lord will magnify your efforts beyond your loftiest imagination. Now let's talk a little about temples. The exterior lighting system for the Ephraim, Utah temple has been installed, and lighting tests are occurring in the evenings to the thrill of local residents. Landscaping of the grounds continues while interior work is finalized. The temple has been under construction for just over 3 years and is expected to open sometime next year. It is the second temple to be constructed in Sanpete County, Utah, joining the historic Manti, Utah temple. This is wild to me. Manti, Utah has roughly 3,712 people that live there, and Ephraim has roughly 6,220. And soon there will be 2 temples in that area that are approximately 11 minutes apart. On a related note, let's read this post from a Mormon women's Facebook group that says, I work in the baptistry at the temple. They are talking about the Syracuse, Utah temple. And it's much slower during the day since school started. I feel called to create graphics/video to invite and encourage youth to come to the temple and adults/homeschoolers to come during the day. I'm collecting pictures of people going to the temple. If you sweet sisters have any you are okay with me using, please post them in the comments. This post is a fascinating and candid look into the challenges the Mormon Church is facing with member engagement, particularly with temple attendance. It's an informal, grassroots admission that the temple is underutilized and that members are feeling a personal call to address a systemic problem. Every member a missionary. This post is an admission that temple attendance, a cornerstone of the faith, is not at full capacity, which runs counter to the public-facing narrative of a rapidly growing and highly engaged church. The temple, which is supposed to be a sacred and busy place, is struggling to fill its seats, even in a highly concentrated Mormon area like Syracuse, Utah. The use of social media to collect images highlights how modern-day church work is evolving. The temple worker is using a personal platform and network to promote a core church ritual, and the church loves this kind of thing. They've been giving lessons for years about using social media to light the world and share goodness, and some members, it seems, are listening. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "They said, I don't want to be like my parents. I answered, then you have to do what they couldn't, feel what they avoided, say what they silenced, and heal what they passed down. You don't break the cycle by becoming someone else. You break it by becoming more you than you were ever allowed to be." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.